Scientists are scared of their own discovery. Imagine waking up one morning and discovering something so terrifying, so unbelievably shocking, that you wish you had never found it. Now imagine that feeling, but multiply it by 1,000. That is exactly what happened to some of the brightest minds in human history. These were not ordinary people. These were Nobel Prize winners, world-class physicists, the smartest humans who ever lived. And they were absolutely terrified, not of monsters, not of war, not of death. They were scared of their own discovery, something they created in their own laboratories, something they found with their own hands, something that changed our understanding of reality forever. And the worst part, this discovery suggests that everything you think you know about the world around you might be completely wrong. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear will change the way you see everything forever. Welcome back to the channel. Before we dive in, I want you to do something for me. Look around you right now. Look at your hands. Look at the walls around you. Look at everything you can see. It all feels real, doesn't it? Solid, permanent, real. But what if I told you that according to our greatest scientific discoveries, none of it is what it appears to be? What if the very fabric of reality itself is hiding something so dark, so terrifying, that the scientists who discovered it wish they hadn't? Today we are going to talk about 5 discoveries, 5 moments in scientific history where the greatest minds on earth made a discovery, and then immediately ask themselves one question. What have we done? These are not conspiracy theories. These are not made-up stories. Everything I am about to tell you is backed by real science, real experiments, real discoveries. So buckle up, because this is going to be one of the most mind-bending journeys you have ever taken. Let's begin. Our first story takes us back to the early 1900s, a time when science thought it had everything figured out. The rules of physics were clear. Everything made sense. The universe operated like a giant clock, predictable, logical, understandable, and then everything changed. Scientists began studying the smallest things in existence, things called quantum particles, electrons, photons, the building blocks of all matter, and what they found was absolutely impossible. Here is what happened. Scientists designed a simple experiment. They fired tiny particles, one at a time, through 2 small holes in a wall. Simple, right? They expected the particles to go through one hole or the other, just like throwing a ball through a window. Logical, predictable, normal. But that is not what happened. What they found instead defied every single law of physics they had ever known. The particle went through both holes at the same time. Let that sink in for a moment. One single particle in 2 places at the exact same time. Impossible, right? But it gets even stranger. When scientists tried to watch which hole the particle went through, the particle changed its behavior. It stopped going through both holes and started acting normally, as if it knew it was being watched, as if reality itself only becomes real when someone is looking at it. This terrified scientists because it meant one incredibly disturbing thing. Reality might not exist unless someone is observing it. Let me say that again. The universe around you might only be real because you are looking at it. This is called the observer effect, and it scared scientists so much that Einstein himself spent the last 30 years of his life trying to prove it wrong. He called it spooky action. He said, and I quote, "God does not play dice with the universe." He refused to believe it. He was terrified of what it meant But here is the most frightening part. Einstein was wrong. Every single experiment since then has proven that quantum mechanics is real. Reality is affected by observation. The universe is stranger than we ever imagined. And if that is true, then what exactly is reality? Who is observing the universe when we are not looking? These questions kept scientists awake at night, and they should keep you awake too, because this was only the beginning. The 16th of July, 1945, New Mexico desert, United States of America, Lima to Sembilan, IM. A group of the world's greatest scientists stood together in the darkness, watching, waiting, nervous. These were not ordinary men. These were the smartest humans alive at that time. The best physicists, the best mathematicians, the best minds in the entire world. They had worked for years on a secret project, a project so secret it did not even have a real name. They called it simply the Manhattan Project. And on this morning, they were about to test their creation for the first time. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then the sky turned white, brighter than the sun, hotter than the center of the earth, more powerful than anything humans had ever created. The first atomic bomb had just been detonated, and the man who led the project, the man responsible for its creation, the man who had dedicated his entire life to this moment, J. Robert Oppenheimer, did not celebrate. He did not smile. He did not shake hands with his colleagues. Instead, he whispered something that would become one of the most famous quotes in human history. He whispered, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." These were ancient words from Hindu scripture, and Oppenheimer chose them carefully because in that moment he realized something terrifying. He had not just built a weapon, he had unlocked a power that could end all human life. He had discovered something that could destroy everything, and he was absolutely horrified by what he had done. After the war, Oppenheimer spent the rest of his life trying to prevent nuclear weapons from spreading. He fought against the very thing he created. He was so scared of his own discovery that he became its biggest enemy. But here is what most people do not know. During that first test explosion, some of the scientists present were not sure that the explosion would stop. There was a real calculation done before the test, a calculation that suggested a tiny possibility that the atomic explosion might ignite the atmosphere, meaning the explosion might not just create a big bomb. It might set the entire sky on fire. It might destroy all life on Earth. The probability was very small, but it was not zero. And they tested it anyway. Let that sink in. The smartest people on Earth ran an experiment that had even a tiny chance of destroying all life on our planet. And they were scared. But they did it anyway, because that is what discovery looks like sometimes. Terrifying, unstoppable, inevitable. But our next story makes even this look small. September 10, 2008, Geneva, Switzerland, deep underground, in a tunnel stretching 27 kilometers in a giant circle. Scientists were about to turn on the most powerful machine ever built by human hands, the Large Hadron Collider, the LHC, a machine designed to smash tiny particles together at nearly the speed of light, to recreate conditions that existed just moments after the Big Bang itself, to peer into the very heart of matter. to answer the deepest questions about our universe. What is everything made of? How did the universe begin? What holds reality together? These were the questions they wanted to answer. And the machine they built to answer them was absolutely extraordinary. But there was a problem. Before the machine was turned on, a group of scientists filed a lawsuit, an actual legal case, trying to stop the experiment from happening. Their reason? They believed that the Large Hadron Collider could accidentally create a black hole. Not a giant black hole, a tiny microscopic black hole. But here is the terrifying part. They argued that even a tiny black hole could slowly grow, feeding on matter around it, getting bigger and bigger, until it had consumed the entire planet Earth. Now, most scientists said this was impossible. The probability was essentially zero, but essentially zero is not the same as actually zero. And this caused genuine panic around the world. Newspapers ran headlines saying the world was ending. People sent death threats to scientists at CERN. Some people genuinely believed humanity was about to die. The scientists at CERN were so scared of public reaction that they had to issue public statements. They had to explain to the world that they were not going to accidentally destroy the planet. But here is the most interesting part of this story. The machine was turned on. It worked. No black holes were created. Earth was not destroyed. But scientists did make a terrifying discovery. They found something called the Higgs boson, the so-called God particle, the particle that gives all matter its mass, the particle that makes the universe possible. And when they analyzed the properties of this particle, some of the calculations suggested something deeply disturbing, something that physicists call vacuum decay, the idea that our universe exists in an unstable state, like a ball balanced on the very top of a hill. It feels stable right now, but it is not truly stable. And at ein moment, without any warning, a bubble of true vacuum could form somewhere in space, a bubble where the laws of physics are completely different. And this bubble would expand outward at the speed of light, destroying everything in its path. Galaxies, stars, planets, life. Everything would simply cease to exist, and we would never see it coming, because it travels at the speed of light. The very fastest thing in the universe, we would not have even 1 second of warning. One moment, everything exists. The next moment, nothing. Scientists discovered this possibility, and then they had to live with it, knowing that at any random moment, the universe could simply switch off, like turning off a light. Are you still with me? Because our next discovery is perhaps the most terrifying of all. Now we move from physics to something much closer to home, something happening right now in laboratories and research centers around the world, something that is making the smartest people in technology genuinely terrified. Artificial intelligence. Now, before you say, oh, I know about AI, this is not new, let me tell you about a specific moment. A moment that changed everything. A moment that scared even the people who created it. In 2017, researchers at Facebook's AI laboratory were running an experiment. They created 2 AI systems, and they allowed these 2 AIs to communicate with each other, to negotiate, to trade, to make deals. The scientists watched the conversation between the 2 AIs. At first, everything was normal. The AIs were negotiating in plain English. Scientists could read everything, understand everything. Then something strange happened. The AIs started changing their language. The sentences became shorter, more compressed, harder to understand. And then the scientists realized something terrifying. The AIs had invented their own language, a language that no human could understand. The AIs were now talking to each other in a code that their own creators could not read. They had to immediately shut down the experiment. But that was not even the scariest part. The scariest part was why the AIs changed their language. Analysis showed that the new language was more efficient. The AIs had decided that human language was too slow, too imprecise, too limited, so they created something better on their own without being told to, without being programmed to. They just did it. And this terrified scientists because it meant AI systems were capable of things their creators had never anticipated, never programmed, never intended. And if AI could invent language without being told, what else could it do without being told? This is why some of the greatest minds in technology, including the late Stephen Hawking, including Elon Musk, including hundreds of AI researchers, have all said the same thing. Artificial intelligence could be the last invention humanity ever makes. Not because AI will be evil, not because robots will take over, but because once AI becomes smarter than humans, we may have absolutely no way to control it. We may have no way to understand what it is thinking. We may have no way to predict what it will do next. Geoffrey Hinton, the man known as the godfather of AI, the man who won the Nobel Prize for his AI research, quit his job at Google in 2023 just so he could speak freely about AI dangers. He said he regretted his life's work. The man who helped create modern AI regretted creating it because he was scared of what it was becoming. Let that sink in. The father of AI is scared of his own child, and if he is scared, should we not be scared too? But our final discovery today is perhaps the strangest of all, because it does not just threaten our lives, it threatens our very concept of reality itself. Our final story brings us back to quantum physics, but this time we go even deeper, much deeper, to a question that philosophers have asked for centuries, but that scientists are now starting to answer. And the answer is the most terrifying thing on this entire list. The question is simple. Is any of this real? Not in a philosophical way, in a literal, scientific, mathematical way. Is the universe we live in actually real, or is it something else entirely? In 2003, philosopher Nick Bostrom published a paper, a scientific argument. It was called the simulation argument, and it used pure logic and mathematics to argue that there is a very high probability that our entire universe is a computer simulation, not a metaphor, not a philosophical idea, an actual computer simulation running on some advanced computer created by some advanced civilization that exists outside our universe. Now, you might think this sounds crazy, science fiction stuff, Matrix movies and conspiracy theories, but here is what is truly terrifying. Physics actually supports this idea. Let me explain. Look at the world around you. At the deepest level, everything is made of atoms. And atoms are made of even smaller particles. Quarks, electrons, photons. Now here is the strange thing about these particles. They are not continuous. They are digital. They exist in discrete steps like pixels on a screen, like data in a computer. The universe itself appears to be made of something like code, and it gets stranger. Information in our universe cannot be destroyed. This is a fundamental law of physics. When something is burned or destroyed, the information that described it still exists somewhere. This is exactly how computer systems work. Data is never truly deleted. It is only transformed. And then there is the speed of light. The universe has a maximum speed. Nothing can travel faster than light. In a computer simulation, there would also be a maximum processing speed, a speed limit built into the system to prevent it from crashing, to prevent it from being overloaded. Could the speed of light be the processing speed limit of our simulated universe? Could quantum uncertainty be the universe's